Okay, so are you ready to dive into uh, early Islamic mysticism? You found some fascinating excerpts from al-Qushayri's Epistle on Sufism.
Yeah, this book is really a classic for understanding.
Yeah, it's like the book on Sufism. There's
Yeah.
individuals who really wanted to experience that closer relationship with God within Islam.
Mm.
We've got stories of saints and mystical experiences and tons of wisdom to uncover.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the book, it's not just explaining Sufism, it's actually defending it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so al-Qushairi was writing at a time when there were so many misconceptions and so many criticisms about Sufis, and his work is really about setting the record straight.
Interesting. So let's set the scene a little bit. The book itself is called Risala al Qushayriyya fi ilm al-Tasawwuf,
Right.
which translates to Epistle on Sufism.
Mm-hmm.
And the pieces you've pulled out are from a project by the Center for Muslim Contribution to Civilization, who are doing amazing work translating these really important Islamic texts into English.
Right, and it's important to remember the context, you know. Al-Qushairi was writing in the 11th century when Sufism was gaining a lot of popularity, but it was also facing pushback from certain groups.
Sure.
And so this book is a guide to Sufi thought, but it's also a response to a lot of those criticisms.
Wow. So who were these Sufis? What made them different?
Early Sufis, they were devout Muslims who wanted to experience God's presence directly.
Okay.
They emphasized inner transformation and piety and a really deep love for God.
I see.
While their practices and beliefs were rooted in Islamic teachings,
Yeah.
they went beyond the outer rituals.
Right.
And they focused on purifying the heart and cultivating this constant awareness of God.
I see. So it's fascinating how al-Qushayri addresses the controversy around Sufism head on.
Yeah.
He brings up those criticisms they were facing. What were some of the things they were being accused of?
Some people accuse Sufis of abandoning Islamic law, engaging in inappropriate behavior,
Okay.
even making heretical claims.
Wow.
But al-Qushairi really systematically refutes these accusations. He shows how Sufi practices are actually rooted in a deep devotion to Islamic principles.
I see.
And he argues that their goal isn't to reject the world,
Mm.
but to transform how they relate to the world,
Okay.
to see God's presence everywhere.
Interesting. And he does this by introducing us to some pretty compelling figures in early Sufism.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just these dry theological arguments, you know.
Yeah.
They're vivid accounts of real people
Yeah,
who live their faith in extraordinary ways.
exactly.
Let's talk about a few of them, shall we?
Absolutely.
Okay.
One really prominent figure is al-Junayd,
Okay.
a leading Sufi teacher in Baghdad.
Baghdad.
He was known for his wisdom
Mhm.
and his teachings on Tawhid,
Dahi.
the concept of divine oneness.
Right.
Al-Qushairi quotes him a lot.
Oh, wow.
It really shows how influential al-Junayd's ideas were.
Okay. Then there's Sari al-Sakati,
Yes.
known for his piety and devotion.
Yes.
I mean, get this. This guy, he never lay down for 98 years.
Except on his deathbed.
Well, of course, yeah, except on his deathbed.
Right.
That's incredible.
It's really a testament to his dedication.
Wow.
And these stories really highlight
Yeah.
the Sufis' commitment to spiritual discipline
Yeah.
and their unwavering focus on God.
Right.
They weren't just talking about piety, they were
Yeah.
living it.
Living it. And then there's Bishr al-Hafi,
Right.
also known as the Barefoot.
Yeah.
And his conversion story is pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
Triggered by finding a discarded piece of paper with God's name on it.
It's a really powerful story of how even a small event can have a profound spiritual impact.
Yeah.
Bishr was really moved by finding God's name being treated with disrespect.
Wow.
And this simple act of reverence really led to his transformation.
That's incredible. These stories are captivating.
Yeah.
And then there's Abu Yazid al-Bistami,
Yes.
known for his mystical pronouncements and his ecstatic experiences. He's an interesting figure
He is.
because he represents both the mystical and the legalistic sides of Sufism.
You're exactly right. He had these profound spiritual experiences,
Yeah.
but he always emphasized adhering to Islamic law even while witnessing miracles.
Really?
Yeah, and this balance is really key to
Okay.
understanding Sufi thought.
Okay, so we're getting a picture of who these Sufis were.
Right.
But what about their practices and their beliefs? What did their spiritual path actually look like?
Well, al-Qushairi illustrates this beautifully through all of these stories and sayings of these Sufis.
Okay.
One key practice was dhikr,
Right.
the remembrance of God.
Okay.
And it's achieved through constantly repeating his name.
Oh, so like a mantra almost.
Yeah, and this helps cultivate this continuous awareness of God's presence.
So turning every breath into a prayer.
Exactly.
Wow.
Another key concept is tawhid,
Go ahead.
that understanding of God's absolute unity and transcendence.
Okay.
The Sufis believed that everything points back to God
Mm.
as the source of all being.
Wow. I'm starting to see how these practices and these beliefs are all interconnected.
Yeah.
Like, Dicker can lead you to experience tawhid, that sense of God's presence in everything.
You got it.
Right.
And then there are concepts like fana,
Fana.
which is the annihilation of the ego,
Wow.
and tawakkul,
Okay.
which is complete trust and reliance on God's will.
Okay.
And these are advanced spiritual states that Sufis are striving for.
So it's not just about outward actions,
Right.
but about transforming your inner self.
That's the core of Sufism.
Okay.
It's purifying the heart,
Yeah.
cultivating virtues,
Mm-hmm.
and ultimately experiencing that union with God.
And Al-Qushayriyya emphasizes that this is not a solo journey.
Right.
He really stresses the importance of having a spiritual guide
Exactly.
to help you along the way.
Right. The Sufi path can be challenging,
Sure.
full of potential pitfalls.
Yeah.
So having that wise and experienced teacher is vital.
Okay.
In fact, Abu Yazid said, "He who does not have a master, his master is Satan."
Oh, wow. That's powerful.
Yeah.
That really highlights the need for guidance. On this path, what about miracles?
Yeah.
We touched on them briefly, but what role do they play in the Sufi tradition?
Miracles or karamat are often seen as a sign of spiritual progress,
Okay.
but they're not something to be chased after
Okay.
or relied upon.
So it's not about gaining superpowers.
Exactly.
Right.
The focus is always on inner transformation,
Okay.
not outward displays.
So the miracle is the transformed heart.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Okay.
And Al-Qushayriyya is very clear
Yeah.
that the Sufi path is not just for an elite few.
Okay.
It's open to everyone.
Right.
It offers a way to deepen your faith and to
Mhm.
find greater meaning in life.
So it's a path of inner transformation guided by a teacher focused on experiencing God's presence
Yeah,
and accessible to anyone seeking a deeper connection with the divine.
that's it.
Wow. That's quite a bit to take in.
It is, and we've only just scratched the surface.
I bet.
There's so much more to explore in Al-Qushayriyya's epistle, but what stands out to you so far?
You know what strikes me is how practical and relatable these teachings are.
Yeah.
Yes, they deal with profound spiritual concepts,
Right.
but they're grounded in the lives and experiences of real people. And that emphasis on personal transformation,
Yeah,
I think that really resonates with me.
that's a great observation.
Yeah.
And that's what makes Al-Qushayriyya's work so enduring. He gives us a framework for understanding Sufism.
Yeah.
But he also shows us
Yeah.
how these teachings can be applied
Yeah.
in our everyday lives.
And these stories, they're just incredible. Each Sufi that we've talked about has their own unique personality and approach to the spiritual path.
They do.
And it's inspiring
It
to
is.
see how diverse the expressions of faith can be.
You're right. Al-Qushayriyya's epistle, it's like a tapestry
Oh, wow.
woven from all these lives and experiences of these
Yeah.
remarkable individuals.
Yeah.
And their stories, they remind us that there are so many paths to God.
Right.
But the essential goal is the same,
Yeah.
to draw closer to the divine and to live a life of meaning and purpose.
I'm eager to delve into more of these stories.
Me too.
We've got a few more colorful characters to discuss.
Right.
And I'm really curious to explore Al-Qushayriyya's insights on some key Sufi practices and concepts in greater depth.
Yeah, let's continue our deep dive and uncover more of this wisdom and beauty in these excerpts.
I'm excited.
What's really interesting is how Al-Qushayriyya uses these stories to illustrate key Sufi practices and concepts.
Yeah, he brings them to life.
Yeah, he doesn't just define them theoretically. He shows how they were embodied by real people.
So let's explore some of those practices and concepts then.
Okay.
We already touched on Dakar and Tawhid.
Right.
What else was important to the Sufis?
Well, Zud is a big one.
Zud.
It's often translated as renunciation, but it's not about completely rejecting the world.
Okay.
It's more about detaching from material possessions and desires and shifting your focus to the spiritual.
So it's not necessarily about living in poverty,
No?
but about freeing yourself from the grip of material things.
Exactly. Al-Qushayriyya quotes Sari al-Sakati
Okay.
as saying, the renouncer's way is lacking as long as he is not preoccupied with himself, whereas the Gnostic's way is lacking as long as he is preoccupied with himself.
Wow.
It's a reminder that true zuhd is about inner detachment, not just outward appearances.
That's a thought-provoking quote.
Mm.
And it connects to the concept of tawakkul, which we mentioned earlier.
Yes.
That complete trust and reliance on God's will.
Right. If you're truly detached from worldly concerns,
Yeah,
then trusting in God's plan becomes so much easier.
I could see that.
You're not always striving for things that you think you need.
Right.
You're surrendering to a higher power.
Yeah, I see how those concepts work together. But let's get back to those stories. Are there other figures that al-Qushayri highlights that really embody these teachings?
Oh, there are so many. One that comes to mind is Abu Hafs al-Haddad.
Okay.
He said, "The soul is nothing but darkness. Its secret heart is its lamp, and the light of this lamp is Godspeed."
Wow.
It's a beautiful metaphor for the Sufi journey.
Yeah, it's like we all have this inner darkness,
Right.
but there's this spark of the divine within us that can illuminate the path.
Exactly.
And that spark is ignited through God's grace.
Precisely. And this connects to the importance of muraqabah,
Muraqabah.
which is the awareness of God.
Okay.
It's about cultivating that inner awareness, nurturing that spark so it can grow into this guiding light.
It sounds like a lot of these practices are about stillness,
Yeah.
about turning inward and quieting the mind.
Right.
But the Sufis also engaged in practices that involve movement, right? Like sama or listening to music.
That's true. And Sama is a great example of how al-Qushayri addressed those criticisms of Sufism.
Okay.
You know, some critics saw listening to music as frivolous or even haram, forbidden.
Right, so they thought it was wrong.
Yeah, but al-Qushayri defends it.
He does.
He does, but carefully. He acknowledges that it can be misused.
Okay.
You know, it can lead to distraction or inappropriate behavior.
Yep.
But he argues that when approached with the right intention, Sama can be a powerful tool for spiritual awakening.
So it's about using music as a way to connect with God, not as an end in itself.
Exactly. There's a really cool story about a dervish listening to a singing girl.
Okay.
And she sings this line about how people change every day. And it triggers a profound realization for him.
Real.
He cries out, "This, by God, is my constant change with God."
Wow.
And his spirit departs.
That's a powerful story. It shows how something seemingly ordinary like a song can spark a spiritual transformation.
Right, if you're open to it.
Right. That's the beauty of Sufism.
Exactly.
Finding God in everything.
In every moment.
Wow. Al-Qushayri also talks about miracles.
Yes.
Those extraordinary events that seem to defy the laws of nature.
Right.
He even provides examples of miracles performed by different Sufis.
He does.
So what's his take on their significance?
He really emphasizes that miracles or karamat are not the goal of the Sufi path. They might occur as a result of spiritual advancement, but they're not meant to be sought after or relied upon.
So it's not about gaining superpowers.
Not at all. The true miracle is the transformation of the heart, the purification of the soul.
And are these miracles only performed by advanced Sufis? Or can anyone experience them?
You know, al-Qushayri doesn't really address that directly.
Okay.
He seems more focused on emphasizing that miracles aren't a measure of one's spirituality.
Okay.
What really matters is your sincerity, your devotion, your commitment to the path.
So focusing on miracles is kind of missing the point.
Yeah, it can be. Remember that quote by Abu Hafs al-Haddad?
Yes.
The soul is nothing but darkness. Its secret heart is its lamp, and the light of this lamp is Godspeed.
Right.
The true light is within us, not in some external display of power.
Okay, this brings us back to the importance of having a teacher.
Yes,
It seems like guidance is crucial
it is.
for navigating these really complex spiritual concepts and for avoiding potential pitfalls.
Absolutely. Al-Qushayri is very clear about this. He even quotes Abu Yazid as saying, "He who does not have a master, his master, is Satan."
Right.
It's a stark reminder that we need someone to help us discern between true inspiration and our own ego's desires.
And finding a genuine teacher is important in any spiritual tradition,
Oh, it's so true.
right? Someone who has walked the path
Yeah.
and can guide others with wisdom and compassion.
And it's not just about knowledge, it's about embodiment.
Yeah.
A true teacher lives the teachings, exemplifies the virtues that they're talking about.
It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And al-Qushayri himself was clearly a gifted teacher. His epistle is such a testament to his deep understanding of Sufism and his ability to convey these really complex ideas in a clear and engaging way.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
I'm really impressed by his writing style. It's scholarly,
It is.
but it's also very personal and heartfelt.
It is.
He clearly had a deep love for Sufism
Yeah,
and a desire to share its wisdom with others.
I agree. And what makes it even more remarkable is that he was writing at a time when Sufism was still being developed,
Right.
when its boundaries were being defined.
So he wasn't just a chronicler of Sufism.
Right.
He was a shaper of it.
In a way, yes.
Mhm.
His work really helped solidify its place within the broader Islamic tradition
Okay.
and clarify its teachings for future generations.
Wow. It's amazing to think about the impact he's had.
It is.
How his words are still resonating with people centuries later.
It speaks to the power of these teachings
Right.
and to al-Qushayri's skill as a writer and a teacher.
Okay, so we've talked about who the Sufis were, their key practices and concepts, their emphasis on inner transformation, the role of miracles. But there's one more thing I want to touch on, something that al-Qushayri brings up repeatedly,
Okay.
the concept of adab.
Adab. It's often translated as good manners or etiquette, but it's so much more than that.
Okay.
It encompasses a whole way of being,
Okay.
a set of principles for how you interact with the world and with others.
So it's about cultivating virtue, refining your character.
Yes, and it's deeply intertwined with the Sufi path.
Okay.
You know, the ultimate goal is to purify the heart
Right.
and draw closer to God. And adab provides a framework for living a life that reflects those aspirations.
What are some of the specific principles of adab that al-Qushayri highlights?
Well, there's humility, which
Right.
is essential for anyone seeking spiritual growth.
Yeah.
Then there's generosity,
Okay.
both in terms of material possessions and in spirit.
Okay.
And of course, the importance of speaking truthfully and acting with integrity.
So aligning your outward actions with your inner intentions,
Exactly.
living in accordance with the highest principle.
Exactly. And it's not just about personal conduct, it extends to how you interact with others.
Okay.
There's a story about Ibrahim ibn Adham encountering a soldier in the desert,
Okay.
and the soldier asks for directions and then strikes Ibrahim on the head,
Oh, no.
mistaking him for somebody else.
Oh,
And when the soldier later realizes his mistake and apologizes,
yeah.
Ibrahim tells him that he prayed for the soldier to be admitted to paradise.
What? Why would he do that?
He didn't want his own reward in the afterlife to come at the soldier's expense.
Wow.
So he chose to prioritize the soldier's well-being over his own sense of justice.
That's remarkable. It shows a level of compassion and selflessness.
That's right.
That's truly inspiring.
It's amazing.
And it speaks volumes about the transformative power of the Sufi path.
It does. And this concept of adab is something that really resonates with me.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that our spiritual practice isn't just about private contemplation. It's about how we move through the world, how we treat others, how we embody our highest ideals.
That's a powerful takeaway, and it's one that we can all benefit from reflecting on.
I think so.
Regardless of our spiritual beliefs, cultivating good character and treating others with kindness are values that transcend any particular tradition.
Yeah, it really is a reminder that the Sufi path, it's not just about seeking those mystical experiences or achieving enlightenment.
Right.
It's about becoming better human beings, you know,
Right.
living lives of purpose and meaning and making a positive difference in the world.
Yeah, I'm really starting to appreciate the depth and scope of al-Qushayri's epistle. It's not just a book about Sufism. You know, it's like a guide for living a richer and more meaningful life.
I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
It really offers wisdom and guidance, not just for those interested in Sufism specifically,
Right.
but for anyone on a path of personal and spiritual growth.
We've covered so much ground in this deep dive. Are there any other key takeaways from the excerpts that you think we should highlight?
You know, one thing that really stands out to me
Yeah.
is how al-Qushayri emphasizes that the Sufi path, it's not about rejecting the world,
Right.
but about transforming how we relate to it.
Okay.
It's about seeing God's presence in everything and acting accordingly.
So not escaping from the world, but like engaging with it
Yeah,
in a more conscious and compassionate way.
exactly. And that message, I think, feels especially relevant today
Yeah.
when we're constantly bombarded with distractions
Right.
and pulled in so many directions.
It's a call to live intentionally,
Yeah,
to be present in each moment,
right.
and to see that divine spark in everyone we meet.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
And it reminds us that the Sufi path, while it is deeply spiritual,
Yeah.
it's also incredibly practical
Right.
and applicable to our everyday lives.
You know, it's interesting how these Sufi teachings, while they are rooted in the specific religious context, they really do speak to universal human desires.
Yeah.
Like the longing for connection, the longing for meaning,
Right.
that longing for something bigger than ourselves.
It's something we all grapple with.
Right.
And al-Qushayri's epistle, it reminds us that the Sufi path, it's not about rigid doctrines or rituals.
Right.
It's about this profound inner transformation that can lead to a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
And it's not a journey you have to take alone. He repeatedly emphasizes the importance of community, of sharing this path with others who are also seeking a deeper connection with the divine.
Absolutely. The Sufi tradition really emphasizes the guidance of a spiritual teacher, the sheikh.
Right.
But it also recognizes the importance of companionship, of supporting and learning from one another.
There's that beautiful story
Yeah.
about a group of Sufis who traveled together for 20 years,
Yeah.
supporting each other in their spiritual practices and seeking wisdom from different masters along the way.
That story really captures the essence of that Sufi community.
Yeah.
It's about individuals coming together to encourage each other's growth, to
Yeah.
challenge each other, to
Yeah.
inspire one another,
Yeah.
and to create this environment where spiritual transformation can really flourish.
And it goes beyond just like spending time with like-minded people.
Right.
You know, it's about extending that same generosity and compassion to everyone, regardless of their beliefs or background.
Al-Qushayri actually highlights this with stories of Sufis showing kindness and hospitality, even to those considered outsiders or enemies.
Okay.
There's a really striking story about Abraham, the friend of God,
Okay.
who refuses at first to offer hospitality to this Magian because he hasn't converted to Islam.
Okay. But he changes his mind.
He does. God rebukes him, saying, "For 50 years I've fed him despite his unbelief. Couldn't you have offered him a morsel without demanding that he change his religion?"
Wow. That is a powerful lesson.
It is.
In unconditional love and acceptance.
It speaks to the core of the Sufi path,
Yeah.
which is ultimately about recognizing that divine spark in everyone and treating all beings with respect and compassion.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into al-Qushayri's epistle, what resonated most with you?
Yeah.
Was it a particular story, a teaching, or a practice that sparks your curiosity? We encourage you to delve deeper, explore further, and see where your own spiritual journey takes you.